My kids come in here all the time and they roll on these chairs and they make it look so much easier than that. That was epic. And now I'm all covered in dirt. Hey everybody, Nathan Elson here and welcome back to the channel. Now, today I'm gonna talk to you guys about a few different things. Number one, I'm gonna talk to you about my favorite camera because that's just a fun topic to get into. Then from there, I'm gonna take you guys behind the scenes on one of my favorite shoots using my favorite camera. Then we're gonna talk about natural light and different things that people don't take into consideration when they're shooting in those natural light situations and just different things that you can do to make your photos turn out better. And then finally, you guys ask about this all the time, posing and directing models and working with them as a whole. So I'm gonna talk to you guys about that and take you through what it is that I do and different things that you can do to get really interesting poses. So, well with that, let's just get into my favorite camera. Okay, so that might have been a little dramatic for YouTube. But then again, if you can't be dramatic on YouTube, where can you be? I mean, you did just see me destroy myself introing this video, so is what it is. But yeah, this camera's just always had a special place for me. It's just, I don't know, it's a sexy camera. It's the best looking camera that I've ever owned and that I feel is like one of the sexiest cameras that's ever been put on the market. Now that's not obviously supposed to matter a whole lot, but all of us do enjoy gear. Gear is one of those things where, you know, it can be exciting. Now, I'm not somebody who suffers from a lot of what you could call gear acquisition syndrome. A lot of you like to comment on the fact that I still use a Nikon D800 for the majority of my work, and it is now May 2021. So, I mean, that camera, I've got two of them. They've been my workhorses for the better part of 9 years. Obviously, they are starting to show their teeth a little bit at this point, and it is coming time to upgrade. I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with that route yet. But for a camera that, you know, that I like to use just when I wanna simplify everything, this is the camera that just feels fun. I don't know how else to put it at this point. Now, that's not to say I haven't used this camera for work. I have shot campaigns with this, a couple of my favorite campaigns ever I shot with this. Some of my favorite portraits ever taken have been on this setup. Now, one of the reasons that I really love shooting this in natural light is you have that what you see is what you get function in the hybrid viewfinder. I mean, I can set this to electronic viewfinder, adjust everything as needed, and basically what I'm seeing in the viewfinder is what's going to end up on the sensor. And that just makes things so much easier when you're shooting natural light. Now, the other thing is just having the one lens. If you're only gonna have one, the 35mm, which is essentially a 50mm equivalent, is hands down for me and the way that I shoot, definitely the one to go with. Now, the other thing with this camera, and one of the reasons I'll probably never ever part with it, the serial number is #1 Elson. And I may never have another camera for the rest of my life that actually has my last name as the serial number. So with that said, I'm gonna take you guys behind the scenes on one of my favorite shoots using nothing but this setup with a reflector. That's it, all natural light. We did 4 different scenarios. Then we're gonna get into some of the different techniques that I use for shooting natural light. And then from there into the posing techniques that I have and different things that I do to create just more interesting poses. Okay, so this was the first look of the day. It was really early in the morning and it was sort of before the light was coming around the building and coming directly in. All of the light was still bouncing off other buildings and coming in very indirectly. So it was very soft, very flattering. So we decided to create sort of like this little boho scene, if you will. And we took a chair, a little faux fur that we found. We draped that over the chair. We grabbed another lamp that we found. Everything that we used was furniture that we found within the Airbnb. Now for this one, all we're using again is the X Pro with the XF35F2. And then I've got a 6' by 4' reflector that I'm using just to put a little bit of fill light back into the shadows. Now it's not adding a lot, just a touch, but just something to make it a little less contrasty. With this light being so soft and so subtle and so pretty, I just really wanted to kind of keep that flow. And if the shadows were getting too dark, you would lose a lot of that softness that we were aiming for on this. Now, when it comes to the reflector, the closer you put it to your subject versus the further away, the more light it's going to either add into the shadows or take away from the shadows. So again, this is just one of those things where there is no real scientific method to it. It's if you want more shadows, move it further away. If you want less shadows, move it in closer, and just kind of work with whatever it is that you're trying to create as a final portrait. Now for this second look, you can see that the light is starting to come around the building now, and it's starting to come through the windows, starting to create different shapes on the walls, different things like that. And this is the type of light that I really love to play in. Anything where you start getting these little specular bits of light, I find that you can create different forms and different kind of cool shaping of light on your subject, things that make the photos a lot more interesting and not just pretty. Now for this shot, I'm still using the reflector to throw in a little bit of light into those shadow areas, but I also turned on the lamp because I wanted some of that warm light as just sort of like a counter contrast in color, just from the cooler tones coming in from the window to the warmer light coming from the lamp, just to, again, just create a little bit of interest there, a little bit of contrast. Now, one thing that I really love to do is I like to find a frame within a frame. Now what that means is if you look at this area here where she's sort of positioned sideways and she's tucked in between a shadow on the wall, if I show you the final frame here, you can see it's essentially like her head is framed within a frame. And I just find that when you're shooting anything environmental, that just really helps to tie everything together. It just makes the photo feel a little bit more like it was meant to be, like it was planned, like it was something that didn't just happen. Now the other thing, and what I was talking about at the beginning of this video, that a lot of people don't consider when they're shooting natural light, especially in harder light like this, is exposing for the highlights. Now the reason that we do that is that cameras they hold a lot more information in the shadows, less in the highlights. Any information that's in those blown out highlights, you're going to lose. So if you look here, the model's hand is actually sitting within the window frame. And so I'm exposing for that to make sure that her hand and everything like that doesn't disappear in the bright light. Then in post, I can take my shadows, I can boost them up and make the image come together, feel a lot more cohesive. So if you're shooting hard, natural light, always expose for the highlights. Now, the other thing that I want to talk to you guys about, and again, this is what I touched on at the beginning, is purposely moving your model. Now, if you watch Sophia here, she's an absolute pro. I didn't really have to say much to her, but what she's doing is what I'll often ask models to do if they're not. And what that is just slow, purposeful movements. As you watch her here, you can see she's moving really slow. She's not hitting all these random movements and things like that. Everything, all the motions are very slow, kind of calculated. And the reason for that is often the most interesting poses sort of happen on the in-between. So if you've got somebody and they're sitting there, if somebody's photographing me and I'm sitting there and I'm going like this and I come up and I do all this, if I move very quickly like that, you can't really see kind of what's about to happen. So if I'm sitting there and I come down and I come across and I come up and I come up to here, if I would have just like quickly went up like that, might have missed something. If I come up here and it turns out that, my hand right here is what actually looks the best, it allows the photographer time to see that happening, slow things down, say, hey, wait, hold on a second. Let's come back down a little bit. Let's bring that hand a little bit lower. And it gives you opportunities to find more interesting poses, something that isn't the end of a pose, but more the middle of it. Sometimes that's where the interest tends to lie. So if you're ever working with a model and you're just not really finding what you're looking for, just slow things down. Just say, you know what? Just move with purpose. Little hints of movement. Don't have to be big dramatic changes, just little movements that kind of slow things down. And you will find poses in there that just are night and day compared to what you would find if you had somebody just quickly jumping around all over the place. So when it comes to me directing models, slowing things down is huge. Okay, so here we are and we're on the third look now. And all we did was we moved down to the floor. Now what this does is it allows the light to come in a little bit differently, plus all the light that's hitting the wall in the background, it just adds a little bit more depth to the image. The model's not right against the wall, she's a little bit further away from it, and again, just adding levels of interest, if you will. And you'll hear me say that a lot, interest. All I ever want is a portrait that is interesting. Now again, as you watch Sophia, you notice that she's moving very slowly through the poses. There's nothing huge happening, it's just very, very slow, purposeful movements. And the other thing is that, and this is a personal preference of mine, is that I always made sure that she kept one eye in the light. Now, when it comes to a portrait like this, I just find that having that eye contact really kind of sells the final image. If both eyes were in shadow, you'd end up sort of like with one hand kind of like reaching out of the darkness, if you will, at the camera. So I just really wanted to keep one eye in the light to kind of keep that contact with the camera. And so here we are, we're on the final look now, and that light's really kind of come around the building now. It's coming in the windows very, very hard. But this is actually beautiful light for kind of that really black and white film noir style of lighting. Now, one thing that I also really like to do when I have this harder light is I like to move around and see if I can use my subject as something that's creating shadows on the backdrop. So as you can see, when I come from this from the side, her shadow is actually being cast on the wall. And again, it's just making the photo just have a little bit more depth to it. And then as I move around to the front, the hard light is just, it's great for, you know, highlighting jewelry, different things like that. Often people shy away from hard light because they feel like it can be very unflattering, but if used properly, it can actually be a really creative way to create a portrait that just has a lot of punch, a lot of snap to it. So don't shy away from hard light. See if you can figure out how to kind of harness it. If you can harness hard light, you can shoot in pretty much any lighting situation that's available. And there we go. That takes you guys through my favorite camera, a behind the scenes of one of my favorite shoots, how I shoot for natural light, and how I direct and pose my models. So with that, I hope you guys got something from this. If you guys have any questions about anything, use the comments box down below. That's what it's there for. If you did like this video, give it a thumbs up. It helps with my reach. I don't know, I'm really enjoying making these videos. You can expect to see a lot of different things happening. This is just, I was doing the How I Got the Shot series for so long here that I just needed to change things up. So let me know what you guys think. Would you prefer videos like this? Do you guys prefer the How I Got the Shot? Which way do you want to go with it? I mean, I'm making these videos for me, but I'm also making them for you. I want to make sure that you guys are getting out of them what it is that you're looking for. So with that, I mean, this is just outside of crashing the chair. that was a lot of fun. So I'll be back again. I've got a couple of things planned out that I'm bringing to you guys. I'll talk to you again very, very soon. Cheers.